The Space Between Us. Chapter 1. Collision. The coffee hit the sidewalk before Maya saw him coming. She stood there, steam rising from the dark puddle at her feet, watching her morning caffeine salvation seep into the cracks of downtown Portland's broken pavement. The man who'd crashed into her was already 3 steps past, his phone pressed to his ear, his expensive suit unmarked by the disaster he'd caused. "Excuse me," Maya called out, her voice sharp enough to cut through the morning rush. "That was my coffee." He turned, and she immediately regretted saying anything at all. Dark eyes, the kind that seemed to catalog everything they saw and file it away for later use. A jaw that belonged in a cologne advertisement. The sort of devastating handsomeness that Maya had trained herself to distrust on sight, because men who looked like that never had to develop personalities. "I'm sorry," his tone suggested he wasn't. "My coffee. You just plowed into me, and you were standing in the middle of the sidewalk." He glanced at his watch, a Rolex, naturally, and Maya felt her irritation crystallize into something harder. "Look, I'm late for a meeting. How much do I owe you?" He was already reaching for his wallet, clearly expecting this inconvenience to be solved with money. Maya had encountered his type before. Corporate princes who treated the rest of the world like NPCs in their personal success story. "Don't bother," she said, stepping around the coffee puddle. "I wouldn't want to keep you from whatever earth-shattering deal you're rushing toward." Something flickered in his expression, surprise, maybe, or annoyance. "I was offering to replace it, and I was declining." Maya shouldered her art portfolio and started walking. "Have a wonderful day conquering capitalism." She made it exactly 6 steps before his voice caught her again. "You know, most people would just say thank you and move on." Maya turned back slowly, her temper finally finding its target. Most people don't get their morning ruined by entitled assholes who think the sidewalk is their personal runway. Entitled? He actually laughed, a sound with no humor in it. That's rich, coming from someone who dresses like a bohemian stereotype and acts like the world owes her something. The comment hit home precisely because it wasn't entirely wrong. Maya glanced down at her paint-stained vintage jacket, her artfully ripped jeans, her combat boots that had seen actual combat with Portland's notorious puddles. She dressed the part of the struggling artist because that's what she was, but hearing it thrown at her like an accusation made her face burn. "At least I'm not cosplaying as Gordon Gekko," she shot back. "I work in sustainable energy development, actually." "Oh, how noble. Saving the planet in a $3,000 suit." "It's $5,000, and I was trying to apologize." "No, you were trying to throw money at a problem and make it disappear. There's a difference." They stared at each other across the sidewalk, commuters flowing around them like water around stones. Maya could feel her heart beating faster, though whether from anger or something else entirely, she couldn't say. There was something electric in the air between them, a kind of friction that made her skin feel too tight. "You don't know anything about me," he said finally. "I know enough." "Really? What's my name?" The question caught her off guard. "What? My name? If you know so much about me, what's my name?" Maya felt heat creep up her neck. "That's not. It doesn't matter what your name is. The point is you've decided I'm the villain in whatever story you're telling yourself about this interaction." He stepped closer, and Maya caught a hint of his cologne. Something clean and expensive that probably cost more than her rent. "But you don't know anything about my day, or my life, or why I might be in a hurry. I know you didn't apologize. I tried to. You tried to pay me off. It's not the same thing." Something shifted in his expression then, the corporate mask slipping just enough to show something real underneath. "You're right," he said quietly. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry I knocked your coffee out of your hands, and I'm sorry I was rude about it. I'm sorry I assumed money would fix it, and I'm sorry I insulted your clothes." The apology was so unexpected that Maya felt her anger deflate like a punctured balloon. She'd been prepared for another volley in their verbal tennis match, not actual contrition. Thank you," she managed. "You're welcome." He glanced at his watch again, but this time the gesture seemed more reflexive than dismissive. "I really do have to go." "Of course you do." But he didn't move. Neither did she. The morning rush continued around them, but Maya felt suspended in a strange pocket of stillness. She became hyper-aware of details, the way his hair fell across his forehead, the small scar above his left eyebrow, the fact that his expensive shirt wasn't quite buttoned correctly at the collar. "What's in the portfolio?" he asked suddenly. "What? The portfolio?" Are you an artist? Maya tightened her grip on the leather case. Photographer. And before you ask, no, I'm not interested in taking your headshots or shooting your company's annual report. I wasn't going to ask that. What were you going to ask? He was quiet for a moment, studying her face with an intensity that made Maya want to look away. I was going to ask if you ever photograph people you don't like. The question was so unexpected that Maya laughed despite herself. What kind of question is that? An honest one. Yes, she said finally. Sometimes the people I don't like make the most interesting subjects. All that hidden complexity, you know? The things they don't want anyone to see. And you see them anyway. It's my job to see them. Must be lonely, he said softly, being the only one who really looks. The comment hit her like a physical blow, not because it was cruel, but because it was true. Maya felt exposed, as if this stranger had somehow seen through her defenses to something she barely admitted to herself. I have to go, she said, the words coming out harsher than she intended. Maya, she turned back, startled. How did you? Your portfolio case. Your name's embossed on the handle. He was already walking backward, that infuriating smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I'm David, by the way. David Chun, in case you want to properly hate me. And then he was gone, swallowed by the crowd, leaving Maya standing alone on the sidewalk with the rapidly cooling remains of her coffee and the strangest feeling that something important had just happened. Chapter 2. Gravitational Pull. Maya couldn't stop thinking about him. It was infuriating, really. She'd built her entire adult life around the principle of being unimpressed by conventionally attractive men with too much money and too little substance. She dated indie musicians and fellow artists, people who understood that success wasn't measured in stock options and corner offices. People who wouldn't dream of wearing a $5,000 suit to walk down a public sidewalk. But 3 days after the coffee incident, David Chun was still occupying entirely too much real estate in her brain. She was in Powell's books, lost in the photography section as usual, when she heard a familiar voice from the next aisle over. No, the projections are solid. We're looking at a 15% increase in efficiency with the new turbine design. Maya froze, a book on street photography halfway off the shelf. It was definitely him. That precise, controlled way of speaking that suggested every word had been carefully chosen for maximum impact. The environmental impact studies are clean, David continued. We should have regulatory approval within 6 months. Despite herself, Maya found herself straining to listen. Sustainable energy development, he'd said. She'd assumed he was lying, or at least exaggerating his role in something actually meaningful. But he sounded like someone who knew what he was talking about. I know it's a risk, his voice said, but the potential return, both financial and environmental, justifies the investment. Maya crept closer to the end of the aisle, telling herself she was just curious about the business section. It had nothing to do with wanting to see him again. Nothing at all. She peered around the corner and immediately felt her pulse quicken. There he was, leaning against a shelf of economics textbooks, still in a suit, but more relaxed somehow. His hair was slightly mussed, and he'd loosened his tie. He looked more human, less like a perfectly groomed corporate robot. Look, I have to go, he said into his phone. I'll call you tomorrow with the revised numbers. He hung up and immediately spotted Maya lurking at the end of the aisle. A slow smile spread across his face, the kind that suggested he was genuinely pleased to see her. Well, he said. The mysterious photographer emerges from her natural habitat. Maya stepped fully into the business section, trying to look like she belonged there. I could say the same about you. Don't you have a boardroom to terrorize or something? It's Saturday, David pointed out. Even corporate villains get time off. Do you, though? You were just on a business call. You were eavesdropping. Heat flooded Maya's cheeks. I was not. I was just, the acoustics in here are really good, okay? I couldn't help overhearing. David moved closer, close enough that Maya caught that same expensive cologne from 3 days ago. So what did you think of my evil capitalist phone call? It sounded. Maya paused, not wanting to admit she'd been impressed. Fine, whatever. I don't know anything about business. But what? There was definitely a but in your tone. Maya crossed her arms, trying to maintain some distance even though every instinct was telling her to step closer. But you actually sounded like you knew what you were talking about, and like you might actually care about the environmental impact thing. I do care about it. Why? The question seemed to catch him off guard. Why do I care about the environment? Why do you care about anything? You seem like the kind of person who makes decisions based on spreadsheets and market analysis, not feelings." David was quiet for a moment, studying her face in that intense way that made Maya feel simultaneously seen and exposed. "My sister died of cancer when I was 16, he said finally. "Leukemia. The doctors said it might have been caused by industrial pollution near where we lived when she was little. My dad worked for a chemical company that was dumping waste into the local water supply." Maya felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. "David, I'm not telling you this for sympathy," he said quickly. "I'm telling you because you asked why I care. I care because I've seen what happens when companies prioritize profit over everything else. I care because I want to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem." "I'm sorry," Maya said quietly. "About your sister." Her name was Lisa. She was going to be a veterinarian. They stood there in the business section of Powell's books, surrounded by titles about market strategies and corporate leadership, and Maya felt something fundamental shift between them. This wasn't the smooth corporate prince she dismissed on the sidewalk 3 days ago. This was someone who'd been shaped by loss, who'd chosen his path for reasons that had nothing to do with money or status. "What about you?" David asked. "Why photography? That's different." "How?" "Because I'm not trying to save the world or honor anyone's memory. I just like taking pictures." "I don't believe that." Maya bristled. "You don't know me well enough to believe or not believe anything about me." "Maybe not, but I know you're lying." "Excuse me. You're lying about just liking to take pictures. Nobody carries themselves the way you do. Nobody looks at the world the way you do, just because they like playing with cameras." "And how exactly do I look at the world?" David stepped closer, close enough that Maya had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "Like you're trying to find something. Like you're looking for proof that beauty and truth still exist, even when everything else is broken." The observation hit Maya like a physical blow. She felt exposed, vulnerable, like David had somehow seen through all her carefully constructed defenses to the raw, hoping part of herself she kept hidden. "That's pretentious bullshit," she said, but her voice came out shakier than she intended. "Is it?" "Yes. And you don't know anything about me. I know you're angry." "I'm not angry. You're furious. I can see it in the way you hold your shoulders, the way you clench your jaw when you're thinking. I can see it in how you dress, how you talk, how you look at people like me. People like you. People who seem to have it figured out. People who look successful and put together and like they never doubt themselves." Maya felt something crack open in her chest. "And do you doubt yourself?" "Every single day." The admission hung between them, honest and raw in a way that made Maya's heart race. She was in dangerous territory now, the kind of emotional intimacy she usually avoided with people she barely knew. "I should go," she said. "Should you?" "Yes. I have things to do." "What things?" "Things. Work. Errands. Normal Saturday things that don't involve standing in bookstores having inappropriate conversations with corporate attorneys." "I'm not an attorney." "Whatever you are." "And what makes this conversation inappropriate?" Maya opened her mouth to answer and realized she didn't have one. What made it inappropriate? The fact that she was attracted to him? The fact that he seemed to see through her in ways that terrified her? The fact that everything about this interaction felt charged with possibility and danger? "I don't date people like you," she said finally. "What kind of people do you date?" "Not your kind." "And what kind is that?" "Rich. Successful. Conventional." David laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think I'm conventional? Aren't you?" "Maya, I'm a first-generation American whose parents worked 16-hour days in a restaurant so I could go to college. I'm the first person in my family to make more than $30,000 a year. I drive a hybrid, I live in a converted warehouse, and I haven't worn a tie by choice since my college graduation. The only thing conventional about me is my suits, and I wear those because people take me more seriously when I look like I belong in their boardrooms." Maya stared at him, feeling her assumptions crumble like a house of cards. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're making decisions about who I am based on what I look like, and I'm tired of being dismissed before I even get a chance to disappoint you properly." Despite everything, Maya almost smiled. "You want a chance to disappoint me? I want a chance to surprise you." "What if I don't want to be surprised?" "Then you wouldn't be here." He was right, and Maya hated that he was right. She could have walked away when she heard his voice. She could have avoided this entire conversation. But instead, she'd sought him out, eavesdropped on his phone call, engaged in this verbal sparring match that felt more like foreplay than actual argument. "This is a bad idea," she said. "Probably. I don't even like you. I don't like you either." "Good. Great." They stood there staring at each other, and Maya could feel the air between them crackling with tension. She should leave. She should walk away right now, buy her book, and pretend this conversation had never happened. Instead, she heard herself saying, "There's a coffee shop on Division. Stumptown. I'll be there at 2 o'clock. David's eyebrows rose. "Are you asking me out?" "I'm giving you a chance to buy me the coffee you owe me." "I see. And if I don't show up, then I'll know I was right about you. And if I do show up?" Maya shouldered her bag and started walking toward the exit. "Then we'll see which one of us disappoints the other first." Chapter 3. The Art of War. David was already there when Maya arrived at Stumptown, which annoyed her more than it should have. She'd hoped to arrive first, to claim the psychological advantage of being settled and composed when he walked in. Instead, she found him at a corner table, still in his suit, but with his jacket draped over the back of his chair and his sleeves rolled up to reveal surprisingly muscular forearms. He stood when he saw her, a gesture that felt both old-fashioned and oddly intimate in a casual coffee shop setting. Maya felt underdressed in her vintage band t-shirt and paint-stained jeans, which was ridiculous because she'd specifically chosen this outfit to remind them both that they came from different worlds. "You came," David said, and there was something in his voice that sounded almost surprised. "You bought me a coffee," Maya observed, nodding at the second cup sitting on the table. "How did you know how I take it?" "I guessed. Oat milk Cordidu, extra shot." Maya blinked. "That's exactly right. How did you? You look like someone who takes her coffee seriously but doesn't want to be pretentious about it. Cortados are sophisticated without being showy. Oat milk suggests you care about the environment but aren't evangelical about it. And the extra shot." David shrugged. "You seem like someone who needs high-octane fuel to function." It was unsettling how accurately he'd read her, especially when she'd spent the last 3 days telling herself he was just another shallow, pretty boy with too much money. "Lucky guess," Maya said, settling into the chair across from him. "Was it?" She took a sip of the Cordidu and had to suppress a small sound of appreciation. It was perfect, exactly the right balance of espresso and steamed milk, the oat milk adding a subtle sweetness without overwhelming the coffee's natural flavor. "It's adequate," she said. David's mouth twitched. "High praise. Don't let it go to your head." They sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of the coffee shop filling the space between them, the hiss of the espresso machine, the gentle murmur of conversation, the soft indie rock playing from speakers mounted near the ceiling. Maya found herself studying David's hands as he wrapped them around his own cup. They were nice hands, she had to admit. Strong without being overly large, with long fingers that suggested he might play piano or guitar. "So," David said finally, "tell me about photography. What about it? What drew you to it? What keeps you interested? What makes a good photograph versus a bad one?" Maya regarded him suspiciously. "Why do you want to know?" "Because I'm curious about you." "Why? Do I need a reason?" "In my experience, yes. People don't usually ask about my work unless they want something." "What would I want?" "I don't know. Maybe you need headshots for your corporate website. Maybe you're looking for someone to photograph your company retreat or your wedding or whatever." "I'm not married." The information shouldn't have mattered, but Maya felt something loosen in her chest anyway. "Good for you. Are you married?" "God, no. Dating anyone? That's none of your business." "Fair enough." David leaned back in his chair, studying her with those dark eyes that seemed to catalog everything they saw. "So, photography." Maya sighed, recognizing that he wasn't going to let this go. "I started taking pictures when I was 12. My mom gave me a disposable camera for my birthday, and I became obsessed with capturing moments. Not just any moments, the ones that felt true, you know? When people's masks slipped and you could see who they really were underneath. And that appealed to you. Everything else felt so fake. Adults pretending to be happy when they weren't. Kids pretending to be cooler than they were. Everyone performing all the time. But through the camera lens, I could see past all that. I could capture the real stuff." "The real stuff," David repeated. "Like what?" Maya hesitated, not sure why she was sharing this with him. "Like the way my dad's face would change when he thought no one was looking. He always seemed so confident and put together. But sometimes I'd catch him staring out the window with this expression of, I don't know, loss, regret, like he was mourning something he'd never had. Did you ever ask him about it? No, that would have ruined it. If I'd asked, he would have put the mask back on and told me everything was fine. But the camera doesn't lie. It shows you what's really there, even when people don't want to be seen, especially then. David was quiet for a moment, turning his coffee cup between his hands. That sounds lonely. What does? Being the only one who sees what's really happening. Always being on the outside looking in. Maya felt that familiar sting of recognition, the same feeling she'd had when he'd made that comment about being the only one who really looked. It's not lonely. It's honest. It can be both. Spoken like someone who's never had to question whether the people around him are telling the truth. You think I've never been lied to? I think you've lived a pretty privileged life. David laughed, but there was no humor in it. Right? Because having money means you automatically get honesty as a bonus feature. Doesn't it? Maya, I've been lied to by business partners, investors, employees, board members, and 3 different women I thought I was in love with. I've had people pretend to be my friends because they wanted access to my contacts. And I've had family members ask me for loans they had no intention of repaying. Money doesn't buy you honesty. If anything, it makes people more likely to lie to you because they want something from you. Maya studied his face, looking for signs of deception or self-pity, but found neither. So why do you trust anyone? Who says I do? The answer hung between them, honest and raw. Maya felt something shift in her perception of him, like a photograph coming into focus in a darkroom. Maybe they weren't as different as she'd thought. So we're both cynical and suspicious, she said. Great foundation for whatever this is. What is this? I have no idea. Good. I hate it when things are too easy. Maya looked at him, really looked at him, and felt that dangerous flutter in her chest again. He was watching her with an intensity that made her skin feel too warm, like he was trying to see past her own carefully constructed defenses. You're doing it again, she said. Doing what? Looking at me like I'm a puzzle you're trying to solve. Maybe you are. I'm not that complicated. Everyone's complicated. The interesting ones just hide it better. And you think I'm interesting? I think you're terrifying. The admission caught Maya off guard. Terrifying how? You see too much. You ask the right questions. You don't let people get away with their bullshit. David leaned forward, his voice dropping lower. You scare me because I have a feeling you're going to see right through all my carefully constructed defenses and call me on every lie I tell myself. What lies do you tell yourself? That I'm not attracted to complicated women who challenge everything I think I know about myself. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. That's a stupid lie to tell yourself. The stupidest. So why do you tell it? Because complicated women who challenge me tend to leave. Maybe they leave because you're not worth staying for. David smiled, but there was something sad in it. Maybe they do. Maya felt something crack open in her chest, something that felt dangerous and necessary at the same time. She was in trouble here, real trouble. This wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to find him charming or vulnerable or infuriatingly attractive. She wasn't supposed to want to comfort him or challenge him or find out what he looked like when he wasn't wearing armor. I should go, she said, but she didn't move. Should you? This is a bad idea. Terrible idea. We're completely wrong for each other. Catastrophically wrong. So why am I not leaving? David reached across the table and touched her hand, just the lightest brush of his fingers against her knuckles. Because you're curious. About what? About what happens next. Maya looked down at their hands, his pale and perfectly manicured, hers stained with paint and ink and life, and felt something electric pass between them. What happens next, she said slowly, is that we finish our coffee and go back to our separate lives and pretend this never happened. Is that what you want? It's what makes sense. I didn't ask what makes sense. I asked what you want. Maya met his eyes and felt the last of her resistance crumble like old paper. I want to see your warehouse. David's smile was slow and dangerous. That can be arranged. Chapter 4, Collision Course. David's warehouse was not what Maya had expected. She'd pictured something cold and industrial. Exposed brick, minimalist furniture, everything in blacks and grays and metallic chrome. Instead, she found herself in a space that felt almost warm, despite its size. The brick walls were there, but they were softened by carefully placed lighting and unexpected splashes of color. Books everywhere, art on the walls that actually looked like it had been chosen for love rather than investment potential. A kitchen that showed signs of actual use. not just magazine-ready perfection. This is... Maya paused in the doorway, suddenly feeling awkward about being here. Not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Something more corporate. More sterile. David shrugged out of his suit jacket and draped it over the back of a leather couch that looked like it had been broken in by years of actual sitting, not artfully distressed in a factory. I spend enough time in sterile corporate environments. I wanted home to feel like home. Maya wandered deeper into the space, her photographer's eye cataloging details. A guitar leaning against one wall, well-worn, obviously played regularly. Books stacked on every available surface, many with their spines cracked from repeated reading. A shelf full of vinyl records, everything from Miles Davis to Radiohead to what looked like some obscure indie bands she'd never heard of. "You actually live here," she said, and it came out sounding more surprised than she'd intended. As opposed to what? I don't know. Having it as a showpiece while you actually sleep in some penthouse downtown. David moved to the kitchen area and opened the refrigerator. Beer? Wine? I think I have some of that fancy coffee you probably drink. Beer's fine. He handed her a bottle, something local and craft, of course, and Maya found herself studying his face as he opened his own. Without the formal structure of his suit jacket, he looked younger somehow, more approachable. The careful corporate mask had slipped enough to show someone who looked genuinely relaxed for the first time since she'd met him. "So," Maya said, settling onto the couch, "tell me about the sustainable energy thing. Is it actually sustainable, or is that just marketing?" David sat down beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne but far enough away to avoid seeming presumptuous. "It's actually sustainable. We design and build wind farms, mostly. Some solar installations. The idea is to create renewable energy systems that don't just replace fossil fuels, but actually improve the local environment." "How do you improve the environment with wind farms?" "Careful site selection. We look for places where the wind patterns are optimal, but the environmental impact is minimal. We work with local communities to make sure they benefit from the projects, not just endure them. And we use the latest technology to minimize noise and visual pollution." Maya found herself genuinely interested despite her instinctive skepticism about corporate environmental initiatives. "That actually sounds legitimate. You sound surprised." "I am surprised. Most companies that claim to be environmentally conscious are just greenwashing their regular shitty practices. Some are, but some of us are actually trying to build something better. Why should I believe you?" David set down his beer and leaned back against the couch cushions. "Because I'm going to show you." "Show me what?" "The project we're working on. There's a site about 2 hours south of here where we're building a wind farm in partnership with a Native American tribe. They get a percentage of the energy revenue in perpetuity, plus jobs during construction and ongoing maintenance. The whole thing is designed to provide clean energy while actually improving the local economy." Maya studied his face, looking for signs of the polished sales pitch she'd expected. Instead, she saw something that looked like genuine enthusiasm, the kind of passion she recognized from her own work. "You really care about this," she said. "I told you I did." "No, I mean you really care about it. Not just because it's profitable or because it makes you feel good about yourself. You care because you think it matters." "It does matter." "Why?" David was quiet for a moment, turning his beer bottle between his hands. "Because I'm tired of being part of the problem. I'm tired of living in a world where profit always comes first and everything else is just collateral damage. I want to build something that proves you can do well by doing good." "Very noble." "You don't believe me." Maya considered this. "I want to believe you. But I've heard a lot of well-meaning people say a lot of idealistic things, and most of them end up compromising their principles the moment it becomes inconvenient or expensive. So what would it take to convince you?" "Show me." "What?" "Show me this wind farm. Show me these communities you're helping. Let me document it." David raised an eyebrow. "Document it how?" "Photographs. I want to see if your sustainable energy project looks as good in pictures as it does in your marketing materials. And if it doesn't, then I'll know you're full of shit, and I can stop feeling conflicted about being attracted to you." The words slipped out before Maya could stop them, and she felt heat flood her cheeks. David's eyes widened slightly, then crinkled at the corners with what looked suspiciously like amusement. "You're attracted to me? Don't let it go to your head. Too late." "David." "Maya, this is still a bad idea. The worst. We're still completely wrong for each other." "Absolutely. So why are you moving closer?" Because you're not moving away. He was right. Somewhere during their conversation, the space between them on the couch had shrunk until Maya could feel the warmth radiating from his body. She could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could count the individual eyelashes that were frankly unfair on someone who probably didn't even know what mascara was for. Maya, he said softly. What? I'm going to kiss you now. That's a terrible idea. I know. We barely know each other. I know. And I still don't like you very much. I don't like you either. Good. Great. And then his mouth was on hers. And Maya discovered that all her rational objections meant absolutely nothing when faced with the reality of David Chun kissing her like his life depended on it. He kissed like he did everything else, with complete focus and devastating competence. His mouth was warm and sure, his hands sliding into her hair with just enough pressure to make her gasp against his lips. Maya felt herself melting into him despite every instinct telling her to pull away, to maintain distance, to protect herself from whatever this was turning into. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Maya felt like the world had tilted off its axis. Shit, she whispered. Yeah, this is really bad. Really bad. I should go. You should definitely go. But neither of them moved. David's hand was still tangled in her hair, and Maya's fingers had somehow ended up gripping the front of his shirt. They stared at each other, both apparently realizing they'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. David, Maya said, I know. You don't know what I was going to say. You were going to say this changes everything. Maya blinked. How did you? Because it changes everything for me too. What does that mean? David's thumb traced along her jawline, a touch so gentle it made Maya's heart race. It means I want to show you the wind farm. I want to show you everything. I want you to document it all, the good and the bad, because I trust you to see it clearly. Why? Because you see everything clearly, even when it hurts. Maya felt something dangerous and necessary blooming in her chest. And what if I don't like what I see? Then at least I'll know the truth. The truth about what? About whether I'm the person I think I am, or just another asshole in an expensive suit. Maya studied his face, looking for cracks in his sincerity, for signs of manipulation or performance. Instead, she saw vulnerability so raw it made her chest ache. When? She asked. When what? When do we go see this wind farm? David's smile was slow and brilliant.